Hello. As you can probably imagine, I watched the Bill Nye, the Science Guy versus Ken Ham debate from 7 to 9 something. It was like 2 hours 43 minutes. Regardless, I watched it, and non-surprisingly, Bill Nye just utterly demolished this Ken Ham guy. A lot of what I was seeing was a contradictory, hypocrisy type situation, and flat out admittance to being closed-minded. In this pre-written, Facebook status that I had that really that explains it. I typed in exactly, what I saw from it. I said what Ken Ham stated slightly in the beginning. Well, Bill Nye, the Science Guy, you weren't there to observe back in the day. He mentioned observing the past, such as like the dinosaurs, when the trees and the rings formed and when the bubbles got trapped in the ice. He says you can't observe the past because you weren't there. Well, as he was saying this, I was just sitting there and thinking to myself, well, Ken Ham, you weren't there when God created the earth and when Jesus walked the earth. Nor were you there when Adam and Eve were around either. Therefore, he is a hypocrite and contradicted and defeated his own statement. So that is just the beginning. You can tell from this point on, it only got worse, and Bill Nye just demolished Ken Ham. I swear, Ken failed hardcore. Too many straw man arguments, contradictory statements, hypocrisy and ignorance being strong for him. Not to mention constant repeating of himself with no actual answering to a lot of the questions. Now, what I mean by that is, if you watch the debate, when it comes to questions like, can you prove creation without the Bible? Ken Ham never, ever, ever said, I don't know, or nope. He kind of like walked around the question, if not completely avoided it. He worded around it, but he never actually ever answered any question in relation to it. And then on top of that, when it came to questions like, what would it take for you to be convinced otherwise, he just flat out said, nothing will convince me otherwise. This is the ultimate showing of how much of a Christian extremist he is. A closed-minded bigot. And ultimately, that was his failing, to say the least. So, he avoided and worded around the questions that talk about how God and Jesus made the world without the Bible. He just couldn't do it. The constant quoting of the Bible also showed no intelligent response for a lot of the questions. Things he had good knowledge on, though, he just went on about, or as he thought he had good knowledge about, I should say. Then he would go rambling on about it and barely ever mention the Bible. But when it came to topics he didn't really know much about, then he would go and cherry pick the Bible like no other. But Bill Nye the Science Guy is open-minded enough to say, if you have something that says otherwise, legitimately, then I would change my mind on things. You would change the world. Just goes to show even the most scientific guys are more open-minded than a brainwashed, indoctrinated Christian extremist. That stupid Bible thumper didn't stand a chance against Bill. Ken had no confidence and seemed unprepared. Ken looked away from Bill, and more so at the ground, and barely writing notes when Bill talked. But when Ken talked, Bill was looking like right at him. Like he turned around and looked right at him, standing at the podium, instead of what Ken did, aka sitting at the desk place and looking at the ground. Bill also wrote notes preparing for the next rebuttal, instead of what Ken did, which was nothing. It was kind of like Ken was winging it. I couldn't really figure that one out. Then desperately cherry-picked the Bible, gave half-ass answers, and was wording around uncomfortable questions, and never could say, I don't know. At least Bill Nye had the dignity to say to some questions, I don't know. That's why we keep searching and discovering. Overall, the Christian people should be face-palming right now, because their main man just failed them badly. Now, of course, for those that have watched the debate, they should know what I'm talking about here when I'm saying this, but when I talk about the low confidence thing and not looking at him, what Ken Ham would do when Bill Nye was talking, he'd be like looking like this, looking at the ground, you know, sitting at the desk. But when Ken Ham was talking, Bill Nye, still at the podium, standing up, turned around and was looking directly at Ken Ham. Just like, you know, basically staring that man down. And then, when Ken Ham said something stupid, Bill Nye would turn around, back to the podium, and start writing down. Like the efficient man that he is. And, basically prepared for his next statement. And he did this throughout the whole debate. And Ken did what he was doing throughout the whole debate as well. So, it only showed the lack of confidence in Ken Ham. You know, this whole looking down thing, and, you know, not preparing for the next thing. He was winging it, essentially, is what I was getting the impression of. While Bill Nye was ready to change any type of speech he had prior to correct the ignorance of one Christian extremist by the name of Ken Ham. And so that's what I was talking about when I was talking about the whole Bill Nye confidence thing. And then, as Bill Nye pointed out just as much as I do, you know, the whole ancient text, re-advised, reworked, retranslated over decades and all that, more believable than what we observe. You know, I was just like, bam, motherfucker. That was like the kill shot right there. And on top of the fact that, you know, there's so many Christians and other religious folk that are deep into it, but also know that the earth is older than 6,000 years. I mean, really, man. I feel bad for this Ken Ham guy. He just got humiliated. My boy Bill Nye the Science Guy just kicked some ass. And then he pretty much admitted, Ken Ham had pretty much admitted to being a cherry picker, and said, well, some parts, literally, the other parts, meaning the bad parts that are in the Bible, which there's a lot of them, are poetic, as he said. But yeah, let's only pick the good things that we take literally, but then say, oh yeah, stoning people for this, oh, they're only being poetic. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not that way. It's either you take it literally or you don't. He's an idiot. So overall, I mean, I was correcting this Ken Ham guy as he was speaking. It was that bad. But anyways, overall, it was a interesting debate, but in the end, and to be honest with you, at least 20 minutes in, if not every time Bill got up there, Ken lost. Big time. I mean, seriously, it was like right after the introductions, Bill just smacked him. So, I guess we'll see where this goes. I'll be reading up on it, seeing how everything goes, so see ya.